Soul 3 by J.N. Wdowski. For your full enjoyment, be sure to listen to the end. Chapter 31. When Dale and his men returned to camp, the Barterville soldiers were gathered around the fires, eating lunch and sharing their experiences from the battle. None were boasting of their heroism as they had imagined they would. Instead, they spoke of the fear that gripped them. Witnessing the eyes of demonic forces and facing death had not been the grand adventure they expected. It was heart-pounding terror and remorse. Remorse for killing so many fellow humans. Weak, fragile men and women they thought they'd be liberating or protecting, not slaying. All were confused by how these wretched souls had willingly thrown their lives away against their spears and arrows. Tradesman, his eyes lowered in shame, approached Dale. "I'm sorry, Major Dale." "Sorry?" Dale was surprised.
"Yes, sorry. I should have obeyed your command and pulled my men back, as you ordered. I didn't anticipate the madness of their attack. There was a moment I thought our line would break." Tradesman hesitated and then continued. "I wasn't respecting the fact that you are my superior. But clearly you understand tactics. It was your men and your firepower flanking them that saved us before we were overwhelmed."
"I'm sorry to you, Tradesman," Dale replied. "Sorry to me?" Tradesman hadn't expected that. He had braced for Dale to gloat or rub his hubris in his face. "I underestimated your men and their training. As Chopson said, you all looked too pretty in your uniforms, and you lacked combat experience. But your men held the line. You defended the pack boys and got the sulfur. Your drilling on the town greens paid off. Well done. To you and to all your men." Dale placed a hand on the slightly shorter man's left shoulder. Tradesman raised his eyes to Dale, pride returning to his face. "It is an honor to serve under you, Major Dale." Chopson, still coming down from his adrenaline high, stepped in. "The demons will counterattack as soon as night falls. We should build some defensive works. We should break camp and get as far away from them as possible," Zup countered, still wired from the battle. "We need to get the sulfur back to East Riverton." "Don't break camp. Set the campfires," Dale ordered. Zup's face soured with disappointment. "We're going to fight?" Tradesman asked. Not with excitement this time, but concern. He understood they would not be facing unarmed, pathetic human slaves, but steel-armed demonoids and tormentors, in their element the darkness of night. "No," Dale said. "We're remounting. As Zoop said, our mission is to get the sulfur back to East Riverton. We'll push on to the Riverside Inn and make camp there. Tomorrow morning, I want us on the road to Littlefields." "What about our camping gear?" Chopson asked. "We don't need it. We'll make Riverside Inn by nightfall, then Littlefields the next day, then Ridgeline Inn, and finally East Riverton. Pack only sleeping rolls. We'll leave the tents behind, with the campfires still burning." "A decoy," Zoop said, nodding as he understood. "Yes, a decoy," Dale confirmed. "It'll buy us enough time to put distance between us and them." "Good plan," Tradesman said, placing a hand on Dale's left shoulder. Late afternoon. Pixa and Josh scouted up ahead as they all rode north, back to Riverside Inn. Dale led the column with Chopson and Zoop beside him. The East Riverton men rode behind them, followed by Tradesman and his Barterville men. Dale raised his arm up and halted the column. Chopson did his hawk impression, letting Josh and Pixa know that they were halting. Josh stayed at point, yet Pixa flew back to them to see what was wrong. "Why are we stopping?" she asked. "We're approaching the road to the shelter up ahead, yes?" Dale responded to her and the others. Tradesman rode up from behind to also find out why they had halted. "Should my men form battle formation?" he asked Dale. "No, Tradesman. We will be continuing soon. You can ride back to your men," Dale informed him. "Aye." He turned his mount around and headed back to his men. "So why are we stopping?" Zoop asked. "The shelter?" asked Chopson. "How are we on ammo? How much did we go through back at the sulfur mine?" Dale asked Chopson, not wanting tradesmen to overhear. I'm debating if we need to go to the shelter and get more ammo cases and more weapons while we're there. Without the tents, we could carry the rest of the firearms back to East Riverton. Although, I am not ready to share the shelter location with the Barterville men. Dale looked behind them, as he kept his voice low. Chopson went to the others and quietly asked how much ammo they fired. He rode back to Dale after speaking to each man. Like myself, they emptied 1 magazine each. They still have plenty of rounds. Each of the archers were given a Warson and 160 rounds each. None used more than 1 magazine, leaving them 130 rounds each. The pack boys were also given the Warson assault rifles. Josh took one, and you did. The boys and Josh did not engage during the battle. They didn't use any rounds. And I didn't either. I used 1 magazine for my Glock during the conflict, Dale informed him. So I still have 160 rounds for my assault rifle. I used 1.5 magazines. Zoop reported, I am down to 115 rounds. I and the 3 spearmen are armed with the urban fighters. We all burned off 1 magazine of 25 rounds, leaving us 125 rounds each. Chopson added, It was smart of you to order all of us to set our weapons on semi-automatic. So do we go for more ammo and grab the rest of the weapons? Dale consulted with them. It would mean exposing the location to the Barterville men. And we would be burning daylight with another detour, Zoop pointed out. Isn't our mission to get the sulfur to East Riverton in all haste? Zoop is right, Chopson agreed. Hopefully the demons will take the bait of the camp and we will be far away by the time they realize they are attacking an empty camp. I also rather not waste any more daylight, Pixa injected. Dale nodded in agreement. Well, let's hope we don't get into another fight, and if we do, we still have more than enough ammo. I think we do, Chopson assured Dale. Dale looked up at Pixa. Bypass the road to the shelter, continue north to Riverside Inn. Aye, Dale. She glowed before flying ahead to take point with Josh. Dale raised his arm and signaled for the column to move forward at a canter to make up for the lost minutes. Ah, logistics, Chopson smiled at Dale as they rode. No one ever tells stories in the inn or by the hearth about the importance of logistics. Nor do the bards sing of how it's actually logistics that often win the battles. Greendale taught me once that those who win battles are those that get the most well-supplied men to the battlefield the fastest, Dale responded. Early evening. The sun had already set as they reached the intersection with the Sunrise to Sunset Turnpike. The inn stood silent and dark on the northeast corner of the intersection. Pixa was already in her deep sleep in Dale's vest. As they secured and fed their mounts, they retired into the inn and started fires in the fireplaces. Tables were moved to make enough room for the East Riverton and Barterville men could lay out their bedrolls. Sentry shifts were assigned among both groups of men. As the human force settled in for the night, a more than half-day's fast ride away, evil forces were surrounding their former camp. Since the camp had its back to the Great River, the well-organized force of tormentors and demonoids quietly surrounded the camp in a crescent formation. Once his forces were in position, the Nanepack gave the order for his full hat-roof command to charge into the camp from 3 sides. They slashed their way through the campsite with steel-bladed weapons, setting many of the tent aflame until the Nanepack realized he had been duped. The camp was an empty shell. He looked up at the full moon and released such a deep and loud scream that it filled his demonoid subordinates with terror. Even his contingency of tormentors feared his rage. The Devil Maiden would not be pleased with his failure. He knew his future would be bleak and most likely a painful and horrific ending. Looking out from his second-floor bedroom window, Dale checked on the guards patrolling on foot. In the corral, he could see the large group of horses resting from their long, hard day's ride. It was calm and peaceful below. Looking to the distance, the moon was full in the clear, star-filled night. Everything was quiet, except for the distant murmur of men's voices below and the sounds of crickets, and at times, the hoot of a nearby owl outside. He felt at ease, knowing that the 4 large, heavy sacks of sulfur had been removed from the pack horses and were secured in the inn, safe among the men on the ground floor. He turned from the window to check on Pixa. She was comfortably in her deep sleep in the bottom drawer of the room's dresser. She rested her head on the makeshift pillow he made for her by rolling up an extra pillowcase. Looking at her, he fooled himself for the moment that the world was at peace and they were all safe. Sweet dreams, Pixa. Please continue to chapter 32.
To support the author, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.